guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Ria and today we are going to talk a little bit about nutrition and diet, right? Usually on this channel I only post home exercise videos that you can do from home, but this is an exception. This is a diet video specifically associated with my 30-day fitness challenge. And speaking of that challenge is completely free. It's for 30 days and the link to that challenge is in the description box. If you're interested, you can join that. So coming back to this video, in this video I am going to talk about the nutrition and diet aspects associated with that program. And before we begin, I request you to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you can be notified every time I post a video. And if you are interested in diet and nutrition related content, I do have a diet channel where I post diet and nutrition related content, so check that out if you're interested. The link is in the description box. So let's get started with this video. Now, this video has an accompanying nutrition guide. The link to that guide is in the description box as well, and whatever I talk about in this video is mentioned in that guide, just for your reference. So the first thing that I'd like to say straight up is that we all have different nutrition needs, right? There are no two people that need the same nutrition, that need the same calories. It depends on our gender, on our activity level, on our body composition, and numerous other factors, right? So there's no one size fits all approach to diet. We'll have to make it our own. And that being said, this nutrition guide, the pointers that I will mention in this video, will hopefully help you get started in that direction. Now, another thing that I'd like to get clear is that I have designed this nutrition guide to fit the needs of an average sized, average height woman, right? So if you are a man, then you'll have to adjust this. If you are someone who's an athlete, you'll have to adjust this. If you're someone who just doesn't do well with too much food, that happens sometimes, right? Then maybe you'll need to adjust this. So what I'm trying to say is that this is a guide, right? Use it as a baseline, but make it your own. Some of us do well on low carb, some of us do well on keto, some of us prefer vegan diets, right? So it's really up to you how you modify this to suit your needs. But I'm going to go ahead and share a few pointers, share this guide with you, and let's do that. So first off, if you are just starting out on your fitness journey and you've never really undertaken a diet or, watched what you've eaten or weighed your food, things like that, I'd just like to say that having a food weighing scale and having some measurement spoons in your kitchen will make this process much easier, because that way you'll be able to know how much you're eating, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that this diet is a mix of proteins, carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, vegetables, healthy fats, and a little bit of fruit as well, right? So first off is protein, right? Protein is extremely important, especially if you're working out and you want to tone up and build some muscle, right? So protein is extremely important. So let's talk about protein first. Now, protein has a lot of functions in the body, right? It helps in maintaining the pH balance, the fluid balance, but it also helps in maintenance and repair, right? And that's extremely important, especially when you're working out. So protein is something that our body needs. And some non-vegetarian sources of protein are skinless chicken breasts, some low-fat fish, other cuts of meat, but specifically low-fat cuts of meat, right? Because when it's a fatty cut, then that just throws in a lot of additional calories. So these are the non-vegetarian sources of protein. If you are vegan, if you are vegetarian, then some sources that I can think of are egg whites, tofu, protein powder, Greek yogurt, things like this. Now, I would say if you are a non-vegetarian, then one serving would be about 200 grams, right? And generally speaking, if you don't want to use a weighing scale, the way to measure that grammage is by your hands. And what I mean by that is, typically speaking, the palm of your hands, this much, is about 100 grams of chicken or fish, right? this much. That's a ballpark. Obviously, it varies depending on the size of your hand and things like that, but a ballpark about 100 grams. So if you have to consume about 200 grams of, say, chicken or fish, then it's two palms like this. If you're consuming protein powder, then it's 1 scoop. If you're consuming egg whites, then go for 4 to 6 egg whites. If you're consuming Greek yogurt, then it's 100 to 150 grams of Greek yogurt. And tofu again is 200 grams. And usually the specification for tofu will be mentioned on the packaging. So you can use that as a guide if you're not using a food weighing scale. If you are, then you can just use that and you'll get the accurate measurements. So that's protein, right? Aim for these quantities, and I would say go for 2 to 3 servings a day. And towards the end of the video, I will mention a brief sample diet plan so that you can put all this information together, both non-vegetarian and vegan or vegetarian. So that's as far as protein is concerned. And to sum it up, 200 grams of chicken or fish, 200 grams of tofu, 150 grams of Greek yogurt, 4 to 6 egg whites, 1 scoop of protein powder. That's 1 serving. Go for 2 to 3 servings a day. Now let's talk about vegetables, right? Vegetables are extremely important, especially if you're trying to lose weight. And that's simply because vegetables are a low-calorie food item, but they provide that feeling of fullness, right? They also provide fiber. So it's extremely important to consume vegetables, and they will help you along the way. Now, a few vegetables that you can consume are cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, mushrooms, capsicum, green leafy vegetables, spinach, kale. All these are good choices, and of course anything else you like and you prefer. Now, one more thing I'd like to mention is that some vegetables that you might want to limit the intake of, not avoid obviously, but just limit the quantity that you eat in one go, are carrots, peas, beetroots, corn, right? Maybe just limit those a little bit in your diet. And as far as things like sweet potatoes, tubers, yams, potatoes, all these things are concerned, these are considered carbohydrates, right? So don't include them in the vegetable section. They are vegetables, of course, but they will be counted as a carbohydrate. So I will talk about carbohydrates in a moment, but just keep that in mind that things like sweet potatoes, yams, etc. are considered carbohydrates, at least just to simplify this video, right? So you can eat vegetables in whatever quantity you like, but just as a guide, maybe a serving can be something like 200 grams of vegetables, and you can have this 2 to 3 times a day. And if you don't want to use a food weighing scale, like weighing your vegetables like this is about 1 serving, you know, palms open and weighing it like this. So that's vegetables. If you are getting bloated, right? Some vegetables are known to cause bloating. Things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, they can cause a lot of bloating. So you want to cook them really well, right? Cooked vegetables are less likely to bloat you. Now moving on, let's talk about fats, right? So first I'm going to talk about some oils and butter and things like that. These are items you can use for cooking. So I would say it's best to refrain from vegetable oils. These vegetable oils are highly processed. They are not the best things for us. So better to cook in coconut oil, olive oil, butter, ghee. Ghee is clarified butter. So these 4 are good options. And for each time you cook, maybe use about 5 grams, right? 5 to 10 grams. And a teaspoon, the small spoon, right, will help you assess that. If you don't want to use a weighing scale, if you don't have those measurement spoons, which will tell you that this is 1 teaspoon, 1 tablespoon, then it's best to use a small spoon that you would probably use to stir your coffee or something, and use that as a ballpark. Now, for every meal you cook, use about 1 spoon, sometimes 2. So that will give you a good intake of these healthy fats. And limit this to maybe 2 to 4 times a day, right? The spoon and the oil, and it's best used for cooking things. Now, as far as other healthy fats are concerned, things like nuts, like cashews, almonds, walnuts are good options. Seeds, chia seeds, other types of seeds, avocados, all these are good healthy fats, right? So you need to include some healthy fats in your diet because fats are essential for the body. So in addition to the oil, the butter, the ghee, I would say have maybe one serving of fats, right? Maybe a handful of cashews, 20 to 30 grams. And for me, a fistful of nuts comes to about 20 grams. So that can give you an estimate. If you're not using a food weighing scale, if you're out and you're wondering how much to eat, how much cashews, how much almonds, how much walnuts, then you can just take a fistful and that'll give you about 20 grams. So go for 20 to 30 grams a day, 1 to 2 servings. Again, you'll have to modify this because if you're someone who's very active and who needs their calories, then you'll have to up it. But these are just the basic guidelines. So that's fat. Now to sum up this, I would say use that small teaspoon to measure the oil that you're using to cook. A lot of the times what happens is we think like we're not losing weight despite following a healthy diet, and it's probably because we don't pay attention to how our food is being cooked. For all you know, that little vegetable that you're eating has a lot of butter in it, so just be mindful of these little things because these little things add up. So coming back to summarizing the healthy fats, 3 to 4 teaspoons of coconut oil or butter or clarified butter, and 1 teaspoon should be about 4 to 5 grams, right? If you want to be really specific. And for other healthy fats such as nuts, seeds, avocados, especially nuts and seeds, 1 serving would be about 20 to 30 grams. So maybe go for 1 to 2 servings a day depending on your needs. For an avocado, maybe a third of an avocado or even a half of an avocado if you're really wanting that fat intake, right? So that's healthy fats in a nutshell. Now, coming to carbohydrates, right? Now, this is the key because there's so much that is said about carbohydrates, right? Give it up completely, don't give it up, do it in moderation, all those things. But actually, it just depends on your needs, right? Athletes, very active people can get away with a lot of carbohydrates. This plan does include carbohydrates. Now, the key is to choose healthier carbohydrates and lower the intake of not so healthy carbs, right? So some carbohydrates that you can include in your diet are things like oatmeal, oats, sweet potatoes, yams, brown rice, millets. All these are good options. Legumes, right? Legumes, beans, good options. And 1 serving is about 30 grams. So 30 grams, and you can go for 2 to 3 servings a day. And if you don't want to use a food weighing scale, then 1 cupped palm, right, raw, is about 30 grams. So that's how you measure the carbohydrates. Now, some carbs that are best limited in consumption are things like refined flour, things like white bread, extremely processed carbohydrates, things like cereal with a lot of sugar. So those are the things that you want to cut down on. And I think that sums up the carbohydrates. So once again, you feel free to consume things like oatmeal, sweet potatoes, legumes, beans, millets. All these things reduce the consumption of extremely processed carbohydrates like refined flour, white bread, etc. 1 serving is about 30 grams, and if you're not using a food weighing scale, a cupped palm weighed raw right before you cook the thing, that's about 30 grams. And I think that's pretty much it when it comes to carbohydrates. Now let's talk about fruits, right? And I love fruits, right? It was very difficult for me to reduce the consumption of fruits because they're just so tasty. But that being said, fruits are okay, but the key is portion control, right? Eating too much fruit also is not the best thing, especially when you're trying to lose weight. And I would say you can eat any fruit you like, right? Fruit is such a personal thing. Go for anything you like, but I will mention a few low sugar fruits such as strawberries, such as peaches, blackberries, blueberries. These are fruits that are relatively lower in their sugar content, and you can have 1 to 2 servings a day. So if you're having something like an apple or an orange or a pear, maybe 1 apple, 1 pear, 1 orange is 1 serving. If you're having something like strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, then 100 grams, right? And I don't know how to measure 100 grams of fruit by my hands. So if anybody knows, you can put it in the comment box. I don't know that. So maybe for this, you'll need to use some food weighing scale or a measurement cup or something like that. So that's as far as fruits are concerned. And to sum it up, one apple, one peach, one pear is one serving, or one orange, 100 grams of strawberries, raspberries, things like that is one serving. Go for 1 to 2 servings a day, right? And that pretty much sums up the diet plan. And as far as things to limit, I would say it's sugar, right? Sugar in any form, be it agave, be it honey, be it jaggery, be it anything. So the most important thing to reduce and limit or even eliminate and avoid is processed sugars in other forms as well. Second thing to limit is refined carbohydrates, things like white bread, refined flour, etc. The third thing to limit is outside foods, right? Foods that are processed outside, made outside, and that's simply because we don't know what goes into making those foods, right? It gets difficult to keep a track of the foods that are made outside in terms of the oil that goes in, what other things have been put in, things like that. So it's best to limit the intake of outside food. And the fourth thing to restrict is processed foods, right? Processed foods such as biscuits, cakes, candies, chips, anything that comes in a box, sugary cereal, right? That's full of sugar. Or even some healthy bars that are full of sugar. It's best to refrain from all these things and eat natural, eat clean, eat real ingredients. And as far as beverages are concerned, a lot of us consume a lot of calories through beverages without knowing it, right? So things like these coffees that are loaded with sugar, fruit juices, sodas, these are things to avoid, right? Instead, go for black coffee. Water is definitely the best thing to consume. Green tea, herbal teas that are unsweetened, these are good options. And if you don't like your coffee black and you want to add a dash of milk, go right ahead. You can sweeten it up with some stevia, things like that. So those are good ways of sweetening up your coffee, adding a dash of milk. You can always add some almond milk, some other form of milk if you do not consume dairy. But refrain from those coffees that are loaded with sugar and cream and ice cream and I don't even know what. So that's the things to avoid and the beverages, and I think I've summed it up pretty much. So now let's just talk about maybe a sample diet, and all this is mentioned in that guide, and the link to that guide is in the description box. So if you're a non-vegetarian, I'll start with the non-vegetarian plan and then I will go to the vegetarian plan. And this plan gives about 1600 to 1700 calories. It's made for an average sized woman, and if you need more calories, if you need to adjust your calories, up the protein, lower the carbs, up the fat, whatever you like, you can do that, right? This is just a basic guide. So let's talk about the plan. Now, again, this is just a sample. Make it your own, eat what you like. The key to sticking with a diet is eating what you like, right? And over time, you'll figure out your preferences. You'll figure out how eating healthy can be fun as well. So for breakfast, you can do something like an omelette made with 4 to 6 egg whites, 30 grams of oatmeal, and some chopped strawberries on top, say 100 grams or so. Then 2 to 3 hours later, you can do a little snack, maybe a handful of nuts, maybe a handful of cashews, right? For lunch, you can make a chicken dish, say an Indian spiced chicken with a vegetable, say cauliflower, and a source of carbohydrates such as brown rice. So that's something you can do for lunch, and then the quantities are mentioned in the PDF document below. And then as a snack, after that 2 to 3 hours, say you feel like a little peckish, a little hungry, you can have Greek yogurt, 100 to 150 grams, or you can have a protein shake as well, right? And you can add an apple to this, a pear, an orange, a fruit that you enjoy. And for dinner, you can have something like grilled fish, a side of mixed veggies, and maybe a sweet potato if you like sweet potatoes, or a yam, or sometimes you can even have a lentil soup, right? So that's a non-vegetarian sample plan, and this will give you about 1600 to 1700 calories. And let's talk about the vegan and vegetarian option. So the vegan and vegetarian option doesn't change much. So what I've done for this is, instead of the omelette, so breakfast can be something like a protein shake with oatmeal and chopped strawberries, right? Then a snack can be a handful of nuts, cashews, almonds, walnuts, whatever you prefer. For lunch, instead of chicken, you can do an Indian spiced tofu curry or some tofu combination with some brown rice and a vegetable on the side. Even cauliflower is a good option, or any other vegetable that you like, right? Mushrooms, capsicums, anything. And then as a snack, again, if you are vegetarian and you consume dairy, Greek yogurt is a good option. A protein shake is a good option. If you are vegan, you can do a vegan protein shake or vegan yogurt, right? And on top of that, you can have one serving of fruit. So maybe an apple or strawberries or whatever it is you prefer. For dinner, you can do something like maybe paneer, right? If you're Indian, you know what I'm talking about. That's Indian cheese. It's cottage cheese, but it's slightly different. You can do 100 grams of that cheese, paneer, or you can do something like tempeh, again 100 grams of that or so, and throw in some lentil soup and some mixed vegetables, and that pretty much sums it up. So to close it out, I would say that this is a guideline. If you don't like to eat carbs, a lot of people I meet, I talk to, are low carb, are keto. So if you want to follow that way of eating, that's completely fine. This is just a guide, right? And the link to all this is in the description box. And again, you can join my 30-day fitness challenge. The link to that is in the description box. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want more diet related content, then that's on my diet channel. The link to that is in the description as well. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in one of my exercise videos. Bye.